In July 2026, millions of people crowd into theaters to watch Christopher Nolan's epic, The Odyssey. The marketing leans heavily on the physical, analog nature of the film. Audiences celebrate the 70mm prints. They romanticize the mechanical whir of the projector. But this is a carefully constructed ghost story, a luxury anomaly in a thoroughly sterilized system. The truth of modern cinema is entirely invisible. It is not made of celluloid, silver halide, or mechanical gears. It is made of encrypted hard drives and rigid financial contracts. The real cinematic revolution did not happen on a film set. It happened in 2008, quietly, inside the boardrooms of major Hollywood studios and the credit departments of Wall Street. They engineered a mechanism called the virtual print fee, a $1 billion financial instrument designed to subsidize the deployment of digital projectors across the globe. It was sold to the public as a technological upgrade, a necessary and inevitable step into the digital century. In reality, it was a ruthless infrastructure play. The studios weaponized Wall Street capital to eliminate their own massive physical distribution costs, transferring the long-term financial burden onto the exhibitors. The virtual print fee did not just replace a machine in a booth. It rewrote the fundamental power dynamic of a century-old industry. It forced thousands of independent theaters into an impossible life-or-death choice: sign a binding digital contract, upgrade at catastrophic expense, or go dark forever. This is the story of how a brilliant accounting mechanism killed 35mm film, locked the theatrical exhibition window behind military-grade encryption, and turned the local movie theater into a heavily monitored terminal for corporate data. The silver screen as a physical medium is dead. What you are looking at is a licensed projection.
To understand the weapon, you have to understand the bottleneck. For over 100 years, the movie business operated on a massive, heavy, and staggeringly expensive physical supply chain. When a major studio wanted to release a blockbuster in 3,000 theaters, they could not simply press a button and transmit a file. They had to manufacture 3,000 physical copies of the movie. A standard 35mm feature film print is miles of plastic and silver nitrate. It weighs roughly 50 pounds and comes packed in heavy octagonal metal cans. In the early 2000s, striking a single 35mm print cost a studio about $1,500. For a major nationwide release, the math is brutal. 4,000 screens means $6 million in pure duplication costs, and that is just one movie. Factor in shipping, insurance, the physical degradation of the prints, the need to hire specialized logistics companies to move these metal cans from a warehouse in Los Angeles to a multiplex in Ohio, and the sheer volume of waste. Thousands of prints were systematically destroyed after a theatrical run, chopped up and melted down just to recover the silver content. The studios were bleeding hundreds of millions of dollars annually just to physically move their product. This was the friction of the analog era. The studios hated this friction. They wanted a frictionless pipeline. They wanted digital projection. If a movie was a digital file, the duplication cost dropped from $1,500 to roughly $150 for a specialized hard drive. Shipping became negligible, the visual quality never degraded over time. The financial incentive for Hollywood was absolute. But there was a massive structural problem blocking the transition. The studios did not own the theaters. The exhibitors did. AMC, Regal, Cinemark, and thousands of independent operators owned the buildings, the screens, and the projection booths. A commercial-grade digital projector cost $70,000. A modern multiplex with 15 screens was looking at $1 million capital expenditure just to upgrade their booth. The theater owners looked at the math and flatly refused. Why should they spend $70,000 per screen to install a machine that primarily saves the studios millions in shipping costs? The analog projectors they already owned worked perfectly well. They had been running for decades. They were fully paid off. The theater owners dug in. A massive standoff froze the industry. The studios refused to pay for equipment they did not own. The theaters refused to subsidize the studio's cost-cutting dreams. The transition to digital stalled out completely. By 2005, only a handful of screens worldwide had converted to digital projection. Hollywood realized they could not force the theaters to buy the projectors, but they also could not afford to keep printing 35mm film. They needed a lever. They needed a way to break the deadlock without putting the hardware directly on their own balance sheets. They needed a financial abstraction that could magically bridge a $70,000 gap per screen without looking like a direct corporate subsidy. This is the historical blind spot.
public largely thought the digital transition was a natural evolution of technology, driven by consumer demand for higher resolution and modern convenience. It was not. Audiences in the mid-2000s were perfectly happy with film.
The transition was entirely a supply chain optimization problem. Hollywood needed a mechanism to finance an infrastructure coup. They found the answer not in Silicon Valley, but in the complex debt markets of Wall Street. In 2002, the major Hollywood studios, Disney, Fox, Paramount, Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers, formed a joint venture called Digital Cinema Initiatives, or DCI. Their first official mandate was to establish a universal technical standard for digital projection, ensuring no single tech company could monopolize the hardware. But their second, unstated mandate was far more aggressive. They needed to invent a financial structure to pay for the global rollout. Enter JPMorgan and a new breed of middleman companies known as digital cinema integrators, most notably Cinedigm and DCIP. The bankers looked at the standoff between the studios and the theaters and engineered a brilliant bypass solution. The mechanism was christened the virtual print fee. The logic was cold and mathematically flawless. The studios were already accustomed to paying $1,500 to print and ship a physical 35mm reel. What if they simply continued paying that exact same amount, but instead of buying physical film, they paid it as a fee every time they sent a digital file to a theater? This fee would not go to the theater directly. It would go to the third-party integrator who had borrowed massive sums from Wall Street to purchase the $70,000 projectors. The integrator buys the projector and installs it in the theater. The theater pays a small upfront fraction, maybe a few $1,000s. Then, for the next 10 years, every time the studio books a movie on that screen, the studio pays a virtual print fee, usually around $800 to $1,000 to the integrator. That fee services the Wall Street debt. The brilliance of the VPF was its absolute invisibility. To the studio, it was cost neutral in the short term and a massive permanent savings in the long term, because once the projector was paid off, the VPF dropped to zero. To the theater, it was virtually free equipment. To Wall Street, it was a highly secure, guaranteed cash flow backed by the biggest entertainment conglomerates on Earth. In 2008, as the global financial system was collapsing, JPMorgan arranged a massive credit facility, funneling hundreds of millions of dollars into these integrators. Suddenly, the capital was unlocked. The projectors began arriving by the thousands. The major chains signed the complex 100-page VPF agreements immediately. AMC and Regal upgraded massive swaths of their circuits almost overnight. The executives in Los Angeles celebrated. They had successfully outsourced the modernization of their distribution network to Wall Street debt. But the VPF was not just a financing tool. It was a strict compliance mechanism. The contract stipulated exact deployment schedules, rigid technical requirements, and aggressive booking rules. The studios were not just buying new light bulbs for the projection booth. They were buying absolute control over the point of exhibition. And for those who did not have the leverage of a massive corporate multiplex, the virtual print fee was about to become a death warrant. The VPF rollout moved with terrifying speed. Between 2008 and 2013, the landscape of global exhibition was completely terraformed. The physical film print, the backbone of a century of cinematic history, was systematically hunted to extinction. But the VPF was a limited-time offer. The Wall Street capital pools were strictly capped. The integrators established brutal deadlines. If a theater wanted the subsidy, they had to sign the contract by a specific date, usually clustering around 2012. If they missed the window, they would have to pay the full $70,000 per screen entirely out of their own pockets. For independent cinemas, historic art houses, single-screen Main Street theaters, and rural drive-ins, the VPF was a trap. Many of these small operators simply could not qualify for the financing. Their booking volumes were too low, or they played classic repertoire films rather than new studio releases, meaning they would not generate enough VPF payments to satisfy the aggressive Wall Street models. The integrators passed them over. The major chains consumed the bulk of the subsidy. Then, the hammer fell. As the major multiplexes digitized, the studios began rapidly scaling back their 35mm print runs. The unit economics of film duplication only worked at scale. If 90% of theaters were digital, it became financially ruinous to maintain a physical supply chain for the remaining 10%.
In 2011, 20th Century Fox sent a stark, historic letter to exhibitors. They announced they would cease physical distribution of 35mm film entirely within a few years. Other studios quietly followed suit. The message was unmistakable: upgrade or go dark. The VPF had weaponized the supply chain against the most vulnerable operators. Independent theaters faced an existential crisis. They had to launch desperate, last-minute crowdfunding campaigns to buy digital projectors outright, begging their local communities for salvation. Thousands failed. Across rural America and international territories, small-town theaters simply locked their doors and abandoned the buildings. The physical infrastructure of 35mm was dismantled at staggering speed. Projectionists, highly skilled technicians who had spent decades mastering the dangerous, delicate art of handling film, were fired en masse. The projection booth, once a loud mechanical sanctuary requiring human intuition, became a silent, sterile server room. And with this new digital reality came a new form of absolute control. The physical 35mm print was vulnerable to piracy, but it was also entirely autonomous. Once a theater had the physical cams in the building, they could thread the projector and press play. The digital system eliminated that autonomy entirely. A modern digital movie arrives on a standardized hard drive called a digital cinema package, or DCP. But the hard drive is utterly useless on its own. The files are locked behind military-grade AES encryption. To play the movie, the theater must receive an alphanumeric password from the studio, known as a key delivery message, or KDM. The KDM is heavily restricted. It is tied to the specific serial number of the projector in a specific auditorium. Most crucially, the KDM has an exact expiration time, down to the minute. If a theater books a movie through Thursday, the KDM expires at exactly 11:59 p.m. At midnight, the file locks. The screen goes black. The theater manager cannot bypass it.
The projectionist cannot override it. The studio exercises remote, absolute authority over the physical playback of the asset. The VPF agreement did not just digitize the image, it centralized the power. The independent theater operator was demoted from an autonomous exhibitor to a heavily monitored franchisee, leasing temporary decryption keys from a centralized corporate server. The financial engineering of 2008 had perfectly executed a hostile takeover of the projection booth. The transition was so abrupt and the technological lockdown so complete that the industry never truly looked back. The mechanical era was severed, replaced by a rigid digital architecture that prioritized corporate security and remote management over local flexibility. The studios had achieved their frictionless pipeline. They eradicated their logistical overhead, outsourced the capital expenditure, and gained unprecedented surveillance over exactly when and where their products were consumed. All it cost was the destruction of the analog ecosystem. The virtual print fee era officially ended around 2020. The massive Wall Street loans were paid back. The integrators closed out their contracts. The mechanism completed its life cycle and quietly dissolved into history. Today, the major Hollywood studios enjoy a nearly frictionless, zero-cost digital distribution pipeline. They won the war, but the exhibitors are left navigating the wreckage. The digital projectors installed in 2010 are now obsolete computers. Their servers fail, their light engines degrade, and they require constant, expensive maintenance. A 35mm projector could run for 50 years with proper oiling and a few spare parts. A digital projector is essentially e-waste after a decade. And this time, there is no Wall Street subsidy to replace them. The theaters must bear the full cost of the upgrade cycle, permanently trapped in a treadmill of capital expenditure for hardware they do not truly control. The release of a massive film like Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey temporarily masks this reality. The marketing leverages the nostalgia of celluloid, creating a premium illusion for the audience. But beneath the surface, the physical film ecosystem is dead. The infrastructure to develop, print, and distribute physical film at scale no longer exists on this planet. It was intentionally dismantled, starved out by a billion-dollar contract designed in a banking tower. We tend to view technological shifts as inevitable acts of progress, natural evolutions driven by the sheer superiority of a new format. We assume digital replaced analog because it was inherently better for the viewer. But infrastructure rarely shifts on merit alone. It shifts when powerful institutions align their incentives with capital markets to eliminate their own liabilities. The digital cinema revolution was not a technological victory.
It was a highly leveraged financial operation. The image on the screen is sharper, but the machine behind it is entirely beholden to a remote server, operating strictly within the parameters of an expired contract. The next time the lights dim and the studio logo appears, ask yourself, who actually owns the